Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of my podcast and episode 2 of my YouTube channel, the Gyan Dive. Today, I wanted to start talking about the Bhagavad Gita, and so I took this class last year, which was called Hindu Philosophy, taught by Professor Edwin Bryant, who has published a lot of books on the Bhagavad Purana, on the Yoga Sutras, and has like a whole English translation of the Bhagavad Gita. And actually, we're gonna have him on our podcast soon, so stay tuned for that. But while I was in this class, I took a couple notes on the Bhagavad Gita, and I kind of went through it, and I had a lot of learnings from these chapters. So today I'm going to talk about chapter 3, and I'm going to talk about my learnings from this chapter. So this chapter basically talks about karma yoga. So I think one of the biggest learnings from this chapter is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, but there's this shlok that talks about how you should perform actions without any attachment to them. So if you do anything, or if you're doing something, you shouldn't be attached to the outcome, but selflessly perform the actions. So if you live life like that, when you perform your duty without attachment, you can attain the supreme. And I've honestly felt this. I've experienced a lot of times in my life when, let's say, I'm looking for an internship or looking for a job. If there have been times when I've been attached to the outcome, like, oh, if I do this, this, and this, I'm gonna get this internship, or, you know, I'm doing this with that kind of attachment, or I'm giving this interview with that attachment. And every single time that I've been attached to the outcome, and I've been like, oh yeah, like, I'm definitely gonna get this job, or like, oh, like, I'm doing this so I'll get this job, 99% of the time I don't get it. Whereas if you've noticed, like, if you take like an interview and you just are like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna take this interview, I'm gonna give my best, but if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, oh well, right? If you do it with that kind of a faith, and if you put your all into, like, you know, just doing the interview, giving your best, like trying your best without worrying about the end result, a lot of the times I got the internship, I got the job, every single time that I've done that. And I guess you can see this in, like, other scenarios too. Like, let's say you have an exam, and if you study with the mindset of, like, oh, you know what, like, I'm studying to get this grade, or like, I'm studying for this purpose, then I feel like, you know, it just won't be the best outcome. Whereas if you study with the mindset of, hey, I'm gonna study, I'm gonna try my best, and I'm not gonna worry about what's gonna happen, I think you're gonna get the grade as a byproduct, you know? So I feel like this teaching is perhaps like the essence of the Gita, and I feel like it's applicable to a lot of situations in our lives. So that's one lesson that I really resonated with. Then there's like a concept of gunas. So, in this chapter, Krishna says that all actions are carried out by the qualities of material nature, which are the gunas, but the soul is deluded by the ego and thinks that I'm the doer. So basically he's saying that every action that's carried out is because of the qualities of the material nature, but we are deluded by our egos. You know, we think that we're the doer of everything, but that is simply not the case. And I think that was mind-blowing, and that was a concept that was quite hard for me to wrap my head around, but once I understood it, I was like, wow, this is crazy. So, and then Krishna also talks about desire. So he says, as a mirror is covered with dust, fire covered with smoke, an embryo covered with membrane, a being is covered by desire. So I think this was something that was quite a revelation to me, because it like addresses desire, which is, you know, perhaps the biggest qualm that human beings have. I think a lot of religions talk about desire as something evil, you know, as something that you shouldn't have, like you shouldn't have desires. But this verse in the Gita like talks about how a human being is basically like covered by desires, and that it's like a natural part of life. And I think that the concept of desires becomes a lot more like palatable once you know that. So Krishna also talks about how you can kill desire. So he says, if you're able to curb your senses, you're able to kill your desire. Yeah, but curbing the senses is really hard. So he also goes into how you can curb your senses. So he says that the senses are controlled by the mind is controlled by the intellect, and the intellect is controlled by the soul. So he tells Arjun that to control the mind, you can control your mind through intelligence or buddhi, and you can destroy desire in that process. Now, this sounds quite simple, like, oh, you can just control the mind through intelligence, but like, what does that actually mean? I think, for example, the concept of like fasts and things like that have been given for that purpose, so that we're able to control our senses and control our desires. And all we need to do is use our intellect for that. And I think this is something that I would like to delve into further, but this is something that I found really cool in this chapter. So, guys, this is it for chapter 3. And my next episode is probably going to be a discussion with Professor Edmund Bryant, so I'm super excited for that. But if you guys have any suggestions, or if you had any feedback for this episode, please put it down in the comments and let me know what you thought of these lessons. Let me know if you have any lessons from this chapter. I'd love to hear about it, and stay tuned for the next one.